Hello, welcome to my 53 subscribers special! Yeah, so the goal with this channel is to eventually to make it to 100 subs, and then who knows from there. But first order of business, Jane Stewart 5537. Today is your lucky day, because I'm reviewing Blue Beetle. The DCU is kind of yesterday's news now that Superman's come out and Peacemaker's doing well. I'm really enjoying the new universe, and I think a lot of other people are too. So going back to the old DCU with its botched take on the shared universe, it's kind of weird. There's some decent and good movies in there, and then there's some really bad ones. A lot more bad than good. So coming back and dusting off this old franchise felt a little weird. But imagine my surprise when I find out that Blue Beetle is not that bad. It's not that bad. Like, sure, I think the biggest problem with Blue Beetle is that this movie suffers from expositionitis. Like, a lot of comic book movies do. So many moments where it's like, real people don't talk like this. Why would this person who already knows what they're doing explain what they're doing to somebody else? It's kind of dumb. But beyond that, this movie actually got me to care about the characters, which is a lot more than a lot of the other DCU movies managed to do. I think what really makes this film work is Blue Beetle's family. They're actually funny. And not only are they actually funny, but they actually serve a purpose in the story. The characters in the movie do things, and the way they act and speak to the main character affects his decisions later on in the movie. I know this is a low bar, but I have to talk about the positives here. I actually enjoyed this. This felt like a good family movie. It's not as good as something like Superman. When I first saw this movie being advertised, I didn't really think much of it. It looked like a superhero movie with the visual aesthetic of both going and looking at modern day Taco Bell. But a lot like Taco Bell itself, this movie serves a purpose. Yeah, it's not fancy, fine dining, but it's there. It exists. It's not that bad, and sometimes you have a craving for something cheap and fast and just give me the good stuff right away. I don't care if it's not that high quality. This movie is basically like a Crunchwrap Supreme. It's not the most exquisite meal, but goddamn, when that craving comes in for a nice Crunchwrap Supreme, that Crunchwrap Supreme hits hard. The best ingredient in this Crunchwrap Supreme of a movie is George Lopez. He was just a breath of fresh air. Like, yeah, he's a comic relief character. Some people hate a comic relief character. But as somebody who grew up watching the George Lopez show, it was nice to see him in something again. I haven't seen this man in years, and here he is actually being funny as, like, the funny uncle in a superhero movie. I like that he calls his truck the Taco, and it took me a while to piece together that it's a Tacoma, and Taco is just a shortened of Tacoma. Like, I thought that was kind of clever. The themes in this movie are, pretty relevant right now, especially with, what's going on with ICE. We literally see our Mexican family rounded up and, like, almost sent to camps in this movie. So, yeah, that hit a little close to home right now. But I actually think the visual storytelling works in this movie, because there are clear themes about class warfare. The rich people are over here, and the poor people are over here. And yeah, like, it's pretty, like, one of the characters literally says something like that verbatim. Rich people over here, poor people over here. But visually, you see the neighborhood that Jaime lives in with his family, and it's all just like really tiny, flat houses. And then way over here is like the tall, bright, beaming city. So visually, you're able to pick up on, yes, this is like basically a segregated city. And the movie continues with these themes with the scientist characters. There's a guy in this, I forget the actor's name, but he was in that movie Companion, and he was really good in that. He's basically like discount Josh Gad, but I actually like this guy more than Josh Gad, so I need to learn his actual name. Hold on. Harvey Guillén. Guillén? Hold on. Let me hear that. Yeah, Harvey Guillén. I'm probably butchering that, but Harvey Guillén's really good in this movie. He's not in it for very long, but he actually has a minor character arc in this. There is a theme of the rich white CEO using the backbone and strength of the Mexican like workers around her, the Mexican populace, and she's like basically using them as a stepping stone to get to what she wants. She has like mutilated and experimented on this like henchman guy who's basically like Red Beetle, I think, in this movie. And then Harvey Guillén, he plays like a scientist that's working for her, and she keeps calling him Dr. Sanchez. And Sanchez isn't even his real name, and he says that to her, and she just like doesn't care. So, you know, that's just like casual racism from the CEO. And that theme actually carries throughout the movie. There's a couple of moments where, like when Jaime goes to the receptionist desks, and he says, "My name is Jaime," and she says, "Hello, Jamie." So there's a very clear messaging here of like, you know, immigrants deserve respect. They deserve at least you to try and pronounce their names and just not outwardly dismiss them. Like there is a huge theme here of just like immigrants being dismissed in this movie, and I think it actually works for the story. I think it plays pretty well. It gets me invested in the story, which again, that's more than I can say for a lot of the DCU movies. I actually am a fan of Blue Beetle from Young Justice. Like that's the version of that character that I know. So it's actually cool to see a movie where Blue Beetle's like the main character in the movie, and he's actually done pretty faithfully. I love that he has like the little staple gun thing. He shoots out his little staples that like stick to people and pin them to the walls and stuff. And he says he's not a killer, and he has all sorts of cool gadgets that come out of him. And that brings me to the final fight in the story, which is basically Blue Beetle versus Red Beetle. And in that fight, I gotta be honest, I love the design for Red Beetle. I don't know if like fans are upset by this, or they're like, this is just a weird generic version of this character, but like, to me, this looks like mini Pacific Rim. And I mean that as a compliment. I actually kind of like that. The design of Red Beetle's suit is really cool. Like, yes, I've seen better fights in other movies. I'm probably not going to rush back to see Blue Beetle anytime soon, but from what I did see, I enjoyed it. I would probably show this to like my little sister, or maybe a couple friends who'd never seen it. Maybe if we were trying to do like a DCU completionist thing, I'd watch it again. But honestly, pretty fun. A huge highlight for me, actually, it was when Jaime's family hijacks the Blue Beetle craft or whatever, and they start like invading the building and just like knocking over all these agents with the legs. And there's a part where George Lopez is driving the Beetle, and he literally uses one of the legs to just stab one of the agents through the gut, and then the leg keeps walking with him just like dragging along the corpse of this guy. It's way more brutal than I thought it would be, and I actually really appreciate that. I like when a superhero movie can just be like brutal out of nowhere. The powers that these people have, like what? You're telling me he flung a guy through like a concrete wall and the guy just got up and he's fine? They just flung him through a concrete wall and he's dead now. Funny to see that kind of attention to realism with like something so goofy. Like shows like The Boys, I think they go a little far with it, but it's still kind of funny. I think there's a good middle ground that you can find, and I think Blue Beetle has a good middle ground. Last thing I'll say about this movie is I actually really do appreciate the tonal shift. What I mean by that is every once in a while in a movie you'll have like a major character death, and the characters around are like really, really affected by it, And then we are kicked into the final act where it's like balls to the wall action, everything's insane, and the characters are like happy and cracking jokes and everything, and it kind of tonally messes with, you know, what we just saw before. We just saw one of your family members die, and now you're over here cracking jokes. But what I appreciate about Blue Beetle is that after the, like, you know, third act is concluded and they've completed the mission and everything, the grandma kind of brings the family together and says, okay, now we can cry. And they do this like big group hug where they properly mourn their the father who passed from a heart attack earlier in the film. And I loved that, because a lot of movies don't, you know, take the time to acknowledge, oh yeah, this guy died. Not a lot of movies, like action movies like this, will have the like emotional foresight to be like, oh yeah, we should have a scene where the family actually takes some time to grieve the loss of this person after all this crazy shit has happened. So, major points to Blue Beetle for that. I think one thing that the movie could have done better is establishing the relationship between the Blue Beetle interface and Jaime. Like, they have a rapport in like the comics, and I know it from the show. I haven't read the comics, but I know that relationship from the show, and I know it exists in the comics. And I guess it would have been a lot to like kind of establish this, and it would have made the movie longer, but it still feels a little weird. I would have either toned it down and done it differently, or just completely omitted it and maybe save that for the sequel. Because it does feel like they're throwing a lot at you with, like, you know, the voice in his head. And it's not really consistent with how often they do it. Could have been done better, but I don't think it's that bad. And the voice in his head actually does play a big role in the final fight when he decides not to kill the guy who had been trying to kill them the whole movie, because he saw that he was a victim of the white CEO's, like, power trip. I also really like that Jaime lets the Red Beetle kill the CEO lady. Like, yeah, good job on the movie for recognizing that's his kill. That's not Blue Beetle's kill. If anyone deserves to kill her, it's him. The guy who's been getting shit from her the entire movie and telling her, do this, do that, do that. Also, the main villain in this is, like, the whitest, like, evilest Karen. Like, it's dialed up to 11. Like, she is so annoying. The actor playing her did a pretty good job. Like, yeah, it's pretty one note, but, you know, it's comic book villain, it's whatever. Overall, Blue Beetle's the Crunchwrap Supreme of movies. It's not a fine dining experience, it's not the best meal I've ever had, but every once in a while, I get a craving for some quick, goofy, Mexican-flavored superhero movie, I guess. I don't know if that analogy works, but honestly, it's the color palette. I just can't unsee the color palette. It looks like 2016 Taco Bell.